What is up, everybody? We are back here again, episode 3 of NFL. I'm back here with Tyler and Nick. Say what's up, guys.
How you doing?
Hello?
All right, so, we got some NFL action. We're nearing that playoff time. But, before we get into talking about the playoffs and the whole picture for that, let's go ahead and take a second and just talk about some start bench cuts around the league. And what better place to start than the quarterback position at the helm of the offense? So I'm going to give you guys 3 names and let me know what you guys would do with these 3 guys in terms of starting, benching, or cutting this guy. So let's go Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, and Tua.
Sure, I'll start. Um, I can tell you who I'm going to cut right away, and it's going to be Purdy. If we're going skill wise, not even this year. We're just talking about you put this guy on any team. Who I'm gonna cut? It's going to be Purdy. And the other two were Dak and who was the other one, Jett?
Tua.
Tua, yeah. So if I'm going pure this year, benching Tua and I'm starting Dak.
Ooh.
Dak has been in a killer. He might be the MVP right now. I know with that big loss, he's probably put some behind, but been on an absolute tear. It puts Tua's in the exact same position where it looks like he's having a good year. The standings, when he's not beating those teams he needs to beat. But I would still put Prescott at that 1 this year, Tua at that 2, and Purdy last.
Okay, well, that's kind of crazy considering the fact that Brock Purdy is currently the heavy favorite to win MVP.
Yeah.
Heavy favorite. So that is definitely interesting cutting the NFL MVP. But Tyler, how do you feel about that? Are you in the same boat there?
I think there's a very obvious cut here of these 3 quarterbacks, and I think it's very clearly Dak Prescott. I think Dak has to be the one that's cut out of these 3 quarterbacks. I don't think he's smart at all. Obviously, he's having a decent year this year, but I just don't think he's got the ability to win games as Tua and Purdy do. And Tua and Purdy just make the right decisions, make the right throws, and I think Dak sometimes struggles with that. So that's why I'm immediately cutting Dak Prescott. And then to assess the other 2 quarterbacks, I think both of them are kind of benefiting off really good situations. But if I had to pick one to bench, I'd probably bench Tua and start Purdy. Just because I feel like Purdy has done more against better teams than Tua this season. And I know people like to talk about how Purdy's in the system and this is why he's playing so well, but I think you have to give him some credit for what he's doing. Because we saw Jimmy G in that system and he wasn't as great as Purdy is right now. We saw Trey Lance struggle a little bit in that system. So I think Purdy should get a little more credit than he's getting right now for what he's doing in that system.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you on that. Honestly, it's like there's been quarterbacks that haven't put up amazing numbers or looked super amazing. Trey Lance didn't look super amazing in his limited time he got there. Garoppolo obviously didn't look good when he was there. So I think Purdy is definitely levels ahead of those guys. So I think my only difference from what you said is I'm going to cut Tua. I think Dak has like 10 times the arm talent that Tua has. So that's kind of just my rationale for that. I think if you put Dak and Tua in the same exact situation, vice versa, Cowboys, Dolphins, I think Dak plays better than Tua, honestly. I think Dak also has a better deep ball, which would, connect better with some of those guys over on the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. So I think for that reason, I'm going to cut Tua, bench Dak, and then start Purdy. I mean, he's first in the MVP race. I don't think I can pick anything else but to start him. But I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to say about that?
Yeah, regarding the Dak and Tua situation, I just feel like I would have Tua over Dak because I think he's a little bit smarter. I feel like he makes more of the right throws. I do not think either of them are like the smartest of quarterbacks in the league, but I do think Dak is on like the lower level of IQ with making the right throws. I think he makes a lot of like kind of harsh decisions with the ball in his hands as opposed to Tua who like kind of makes the right play more than
Okay.
Dak as opposed to trying to be the hero. I feel like Dak does that too much.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but Dak does have better arm talent for sure. I think
Okay.
that's pretty evident.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nick?
Yeah, I clearly you guys had very different takes than me, but
Just a bit.
I just I just want to put it out there. I mean, last week we also discussed, how when you think of most valuable player, Brock Purdy's not the one who comes to the mind because he's not most valuable to that team. And also, we mentioned the situation that he's in. I think if you put either of those other guys in this situation, they come out with the same record as well. I mean, when you're throwing to Debo and Ayuk and you got McCaffrey in that backfield, I think it'd be impossible for almost any smart quarterback to be put into that position and not win some games. So that's why I put Purdy last, just because I couldn't really assess him in the position he's in right now.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Understandable. Understandable. Let's move on to another position, and let's go wide receiver. Let's go with CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, and Jamar Chase. 3 top guys. Definitely not the top guy, but 3 of the top guys.
Okay, I'll start with this one. If we're going off this season solely, I'm going to have to probably cut Jamar Chase, even though I feel like for the future he's probably going to be the best of these 3. But just going off kind of how he's been inconsistent this season, I'm going to cut Jamar Chase off the bat. And then if you asked me this week 8, I'd have a different answer. But over the consistency of the season, I'm going to have to bench AJ Brown and start CeeDee Lamb, just because I feel like CeeDee's been consistently the best receiver, one of the best receivers every single week, as opposed to AJ Brown. He's been up and he's been down a lot more. And I just really value consistency in wide receivers. That's what you need as a quarterback. So that's why I'd probably put CeeDee Lamb as my starting receiver.
Okay. Okay. Nick?
Yeah, I actually had the exact same list. I think if you asked me this at the midpoint of the season, I would have had AJ Brown up there at number 1 as well. But I think consistency does matter, as Tyler said, and CD's been that guy every week. He's been Mr. Reliable, and I think it's easy to put him at number 1 and AJ at number 2, especially with the Eagles on this losing streak that they're on. And Jamar rounding it out. I know he has Jake Browning throwing to him, but it doesn't seem like he was putting up the production like people thought he would. So I think it's an easy 3 for me.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think I might honestly have to go the same. I think Jamar's the pretty obvious bench this season. Like you said, for the future though, it's a completely different answer. But for this season, I think he's definitely the cut. So AJ Brown, I think that one's a little closer, but I think as the season has gone on, I think it's kind of become more obvious that it's CD over AJ. So I think that also does, it does kind of play a role, like the offenses they're in and that kind of thing. I mean, the Eagles are run heavy at times, and Dak's playing at MVP level, like we just talked about. So I think that factors in a little bit. So it's really close for me, but I think I'm just going to give the edge to CD, honestly.
Yeah, I also just CD's more of a playmaker, I feel like, than AJ Brown. Like sometimes they give him a handoff on an end around and he'll go get a touchdown. I think that has to play a part in the fact that like CD, I feel like can do more than just being a pass catcher than AJ Brown. And I feel like that's helped Dak a lot in his MVP campaign for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, you got anything else?
Not really. Just I agree with that as well.
Okay.
I know AJ's got Devontae Smith on the other side, while CD has probably not as much talent as well as Dallas Goedert, but I think they're more reliant on him, and I think he's produced just as much as everyone thought he would, so that's why he's a clear number 1.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if we're all content there, let's go ahead and take a step over to the tight end position. Talk about 3 guys not named Travis Kelce. So let's go Sam Laporta.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with TJ Hawkinson and George Kittle. Who we benching? Who we cutting? Who we starting?
See, this one's hard because, of course, Sam Laporta, he's on a little tear right now. He's got the most touchdowns by amongst all tight ends, and it's pretty clear in that category. So let's start off with who I'd cut. I'm cutting Hawkinson to start off. Hawkinson has not put up as much production touchdown-wise as I thought he would with the Vikings. I know with Kirk out, maybe that could be a contributing reason, but touchdowns is not enough to put him ahead of those other guys. He's been racking in some yards for them, but especially with Justin Jefferson, I think it hinders his ability to even be the type of caliber tight end that these other guys are. Then next, I'd put Sam Laporta, just because he's still a rookie. He still has a lot to learn on the blocking side. He can catch every single ball that's thrown at him. He's been a touchdown merchant, especially just the Lions in general. It seems that when they win, they're running up the score on these teams. So he's a big contributor to that. He gets yards, he gets touchdowns, and I think his veteran presence will grow as his years come on, and then he'll probably move into that number one spot. Rounding off the top is probably Kittle, just all around wise, blocking, catching. I think it's best for him to be put at number one and still keep the respect on his name.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fair assessment. Tyler?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that exact list. I think Kittle has to be one just because he's like regarded as one of the best blocking tight ends like of all time. And he's been essential to the 49ers offense even without the ball in his hands, like being a decoy, being a blocker, helping in the run game, helping in the pass game. I just think he's so valuable to his team. And then I think you'd bench Laporta just because he has the best numbers, the best stats. He's probably the best pass catcher of these guys. And then just Hawkinson is just a little bit weaker than those guys in both of those categories. So I feel like that's why you cut him. So I'm gonna have to agree with Nick on that. Exactly.
Okay. Honestly, I think I agree too. And Hawkinson is first in yards by a little bit. But I think that's also in part due to just the extreme target share he's had as a result of Jefferson being out. So I think those numbers are a little inflated and not accurate to his level of play. So I think for that reason, I would also go with the cut route. So then you got Laporta, obviously, like you talked about, leads all tight ends in touchdowns. Incredibly impressive. Most rookie tight ends are not at a high level for a couple years into their career. So seeing that early is definitely a sign of a future star playmaker type of guy. So I think you can't cut him. So I'm going to go ahead and bench Laporta. And then Kittle is just, he's only got 55 receptions on the year, but he's second amongst all tight ends in yards. So that's just absolutely unreal. And he's got 5 touchdowns on top of that, which, though it's not the best, it's not horrible either, especially once you consider the fact that he only has 55 receptions on the year. So I got to start Kittle. On top of that, he's definitely the best blocker of the 3. Hawkinson probably being the worst. So once again, just farthering the point to cut Hawkinson from this list.
Yeah. I think Kittle just does so much for the 49ers on those little like screen passes to Debo, screen pass to McCaffrey, outside run to McCaffrey. He's kind of the main blocker on a lot of those plays, and a lot of those plays set up big yards or touchdowns for the Niners. So I think Kittle's been like the unsung hero of the 49ers this season on offense. And I don't think he gets a lot of the credit that he deserves for his role in that offense and how great they are.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're talking about a guy that does a lot for his team. Let's go ahead and talk about a guy that doesn't do a lot for his team. Darnell Mooney. We all saw what happened in the last play of the Bears game this weekend. What did you guys think about that play? Walk me through what happened there and what was going through your heads at the time.
Yeah, sure. As a proud Bears fan, I watched the whole game as I have every game this year. And it was a hard-fought game. It was one of those games that we needed to win. We needed to win out to make the playoffs. And our offense didn't play so well, but our defense essentially had 2 pick sixes, came down to the wire. Justin rolled out, made the great throw. Ball popped out, and to say it was an unfortunate time for me to wear my Mooney jersey last week. Hopefully I didn't curse the team, but it was right in his hands, kicked it up right to the other team, and like him, I was also on the ground crying. It was an unfortunate time, put the end to the Bears season. We're still going to root for the Bears, but that's something that, he's a guy that needs to get paid next year. He needs to decide where he's going. He's been very unproductive with the addition of DJ Moore. And now that we've had a pretty much healthy Justin Fields, you'd think that his production would go up, but it seems that Kmet has taken his yards and his productions. So I think he might be a guy that might be gone next year. And things that happen like this aren't helping his case at all. So it was unfortunate for Bears fans, unfortunate for Mooney, and he's got to keep going from there.
Yeah, a change in scenery may definitely be what is needed for both sides. Tyler, you got anything to say about that?
I mean, just an unfortunate play. And I mean, that's something that we're going to be seeing for a few years and for the next few years, I feel like, just because it was one of those like shacked in a fool moments in the NFL. And just unfortunate for Mooney. You got to feel for the guy and feel for the Bears, but you got to be making those plays. It was right. It was set up perfectly for him. I mean, I could have caught that. So,
Would you
yeah, feel
would
bad
you have
for
made
Mooney.
it down the field in that much time?
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Yeah, unfortunate
Bro was back
for
at the
Mooney.
30 while everybody's going up for the Hail Mary.
Yeah, unfortunate play for
I mean, I would
Mooney,
have caught
but
that.
Yeah, but not much to say. I mean, it's just what happens in the NFL, and you got to be able to bounce back from that and not let that get to your head, especially as a receiver. A lot of receivers can go into slumps. So,
Yep.
yeah, just what happens, and hopefully he gets better and moves on from that.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So you know what? Let's go ahead and segue into Brandon Staley. You know, this is a guy that went from being a Division III defensive coordinator to an NFL head coach in 5 years. 5 years flat, all the way. So we all saw how that turned out. You know, lost that game to the Raiders, what, 63-21,
Yeah.
and he is no longer employed. Filed for unemployment yesterday for those that are interested. But you know, he's got generational wealth. I'm sure he's happy doing whatever he's doing now. What do you guys make of like the Chargers situation and what they need to do?
I mean, first of all, if you guys follow Slow Your Roll Pod on Twitter, you can see that our admin has been tweeting a lot of negative comments toward Brandon Staley. So we're not really big fans of Brandon Staley on this pod. He hasn't been great this season, obviously, and that 63-21 loss was a lot worse than the score. Honestly, like the Chargers picked up points in garbage time. Like that game could have been 70-0. So, first of all, just horrible tenure for Brandon Staley with the Chargers. Felt like it was a big step back in Justin Herbert's career. I don't know where the Chargers go forward from this. I mean, obviously they're going to finish out the season with like maybe 6 or 7 wins.
The streets are saying
And
Jim Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh, maybe. I mean, that's going to be one of the most sought after head coaching jobs in like NFL history because you have a established quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The roster's not that bad, but it could use some tweaking. So I think a lot of coaches are going to want to go to the Chargers in LA too. Good weather, good scenery there. So I think it's going to be a job that a lot of people are going to want. So it's up to the Chargers to make the right decision with the head coach. I think Harbaugh could be solid. Also keep in mind for maybe Bill Belichick, that could be a potential move. There's also a few coordinators that could go for that job, but I mean, we'll see. It's definitely a job that a lot of people are going to want. Coaching Justin Herbert.
The problem with the Chargers is honestly every star not named Justin Herbert there is old. That's really
Yeah,
the issue. Herbert's on a different timeline from just about everybody else there, and they've done a horrible job in terms of bringing in young talent around him. I mean, we saw what they did
yeah.
with their first round pick, Quentin
Quentin
Johnston.
Johnson.
It's been a struggle. He's actually literally costed them games with his drops this season. So I think that's definitely, you know, a problem that I is the GM still there? I think he was fired as
No,
well.
he
Yeah,
got
he got
fired
yeah.
too.
So
Yeah, he
so
got fired.
clearly, you know, it's a problem from top to bottom. So they got to get that
Yeah,
hire right too, so they can start making the right decisions come draft time. I mean, Quentin Johnson was the second wide receiver off the board, correct?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
right
there
after.
were still plenty of good options out there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
you know, I'm not sure why they haven't tried to put like a speedster out there when they have a guy with a deep ball. They've really just kind of tried to get these big, tall, physical wide receivers. I mean, it's pretty much just like, you know, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and then Quentin Johnson. They're all what 6'3" or taller and run
yeah.
like not that fast to 40s. So I think that's a bit of a problem too, and I think that though it is like a job a bunch of people are gonna want, I think it's a bigger rebuild than people are gonna see at first glance. I don't think you're gonna get another 15 sack season out of Khalil Mack, to be honest. Though it's crazy he's done that. He had a 6 sacks game though, so that's a little inflated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think it's as small of a rebuild as it seems like when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, because you have so much else to deal with, and then you're gonna have guys that are heading out, retiring, you know, and such like that. You know, Mike Williams is injured and his contract's expiring, so that's a problem. So it'll be interesting to see which direction they go with both these hires. I don't think they go defensive. I think they did that last time
No,
and it
you
bit
have to
them.
go
So I
offensive.
think they go with an offensive hire. So, you know, there's guys like Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator, that's been really popular. Obviously, Harbaugh is definitely an option. He had success on the Niners when he was in the NFL. Nick, what do you think?
And then Sherman said he should have been fired at halftime. I mean, it was an
Yeah,
absolute joke game. It really was, and you know that was a joke, but it really should have been true. I mean, you could just tell he's deflated out there. He's been deflated for weeks. You know, it sucks because that's why the GM, you know, also tanked forward. I mean, I think they took a big chance on taking Quinton in the first round. they had established wide receivers. I mean, you have Mike, you got Keenan, you have Josh Palmer. These are guys that probably on another team wouldn't be picking a first round wide receiver. They're at a decent enough situation where they could attack other positions. So it seems that they're now in a spot where they probably have to sell one of their stars for some young draft picks. And I don't know who that's going to be. It could be, Khalil, it could be Derwin. You don't know who that's going to be, but probably in a spot next year where they got to tank now and figure out what they're going to do. Maybe make some free agent acquisitions, but they don't have too much money left on that payroll, so they have a lot of work cut out for them. But if anyone could do it, it's definitely Bill Belichick or anyone like that can take over the team and change it very fast.
Okay. Okay. Who? Let's just go ahead and name your guys' favorites to get this job. Your number one guy, like not even like who you think it's gonna be. Like who do you think
Who you'd want?
would turn this around the best?
Um, I'd probably have to go with Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh is going to have more pull than a guy like because think Belichick's. I don't know. It's kind of a dream situation. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
I think Harbaugh is going to have more pull than like a guy like Ben Johnson, with like free agents. You know what I mean? I think more people are going to want to go play for Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and already been a successful NFL head coach. So I think that's why he would probably be the best situation for the Chargers. Um, yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Nick.
I mean, if we're going offensive coordinator, the enemy's coming to my mind. He's probably the guy that you put in there, that could take over, help a QB, put you in the right direction. I think it's deeper than the coach. It's also a GM. So I know with Bill Belichick, you kind of almost get that 2-in-1. But it's hard. I would probably say Bieniemy as my number one if I'm looking for just an offensive minded coach. But I think the problem lies deeper than just the coaching.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. I think that both of those are very, very viable options, and they could definitely see success with that. Honestly, I'm gonna go with the guy I just brought up. I'm gonna go with Ben Johnson. I think that if you look at what he's done in terms of the entire offense, it's incredible. And the fact that Sean McVay had Jared Goff with Cooper Cup down in L.A. and his career was sputtering out, and now Pro Bowl caliber player Jared Goff, completely different with debatably a worse receiving core last year, still put up better numbers than he was putting up on the Rams. That kind of turnaround is unprecedented. So if you have a coordinator that can get that kind of production out of a guy that was struggling somewhere else where he still had good talent around him, I think that's really, really impressive, and I think that's exactly what Herbert needs. He's not going to have that wide receiver talent like we talked about forever. Keenan Allen's older, Mike Williams expiring, Quentin Johnston, bit of a question mark there to say the least. So I think Ben Johnson is honestly the guy that can get the most out of the current Chargers team. I don't necessarily know how his, leadership, locker room stuff's going to be. I don't know that much about him in terms of all that. So I think that is the biggest question mark with him. But in terms of, pure play calling and, all that, I think Ben Johnson would be the best fit for Justin Herbert and the Chargers.
Yeah, I think with Ben Johnson, if you were to hire him, given leadership's the question mark, you'd have to have a former head coach as a coordinator, just to kind of bring that balance of leadership and locker room presence. You're going to have someone in there that knows how to be a head coach,
Okay.
at least so he could advise him a little bit. So the Chargers definitely should probably just clean house and bring in new coordinators. I know they do that a lot of times when they
Yeah.
bring in a new head coach. So I think the coordinator hires are going to be almost just as more important
Mm-hmm.
than the head coach hire, just because that kind of sets a lot of the stability in that franchise and how they're going to be going forward, with their offense and their defense.
Yeah, I think that's also still true. Like for all Harbaugh, as far as I know, he hasn't been a play caller any time in recent history
Yeah.
for any of the teams he's been coaching. So I think that's very true. I don't think Kellen Moore was a good hire, honestly, from the Cowboys. I don't think he's done well at all. I mean, he's made Eckler look like
Yeah.
the worst running back in the league. Like it's crazy. Some of these weeks he's averaging 1.2 yards a carry or whatever it is. So I think that was, a miss on that hire. And he's still there. So for all we know, they could be sticking with him.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
hold on, you go.
I was just gonna say it's just gonna be up to the next head coach whether he stays or not, and
Yeah,
hopefully, like if a guy like Ben Johnson or Bieniemy comes in that's never been a head coach before, they'll know who to bring in, and that's really important going forward.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And Bieniemy's done really well with Sam Howell too. Honestly, that's
Yeah,
definitely worth mentioning. Sam Howell's looked like a pretty solid quarterback and looked like he can be, at least the guy for the next 2 to 3 years at the bare minimum. So I think that's been impressive to see this year too, especially, coming from how the Commanders looked last year on the offensive end.
yeah, for sure.
But, let's go ahead and talk about some games we coming up. We got a couple of big ones this weekend. We got Cowboys, Dolphins, and Ravens, Niners. Which game do we want to go to first?
Let's start with Cowboys Dolphins. I think that's game is before Ravens Niners.
Okay. What do you guys think?
Um, I think the Cowboys will get a win over the Dolphins. I think
Okay.
the Dolphins still have yet to beat anyone that's good. I think you can make the same argument with the Cowboys. But I do think they're more proven than the Dolphins. I think their defense is a lot stronger. It'll be a good game. I'm interested to see how Micah Parsons can get to Tua. I think that'll kind of set the stone for the game to see if Parsons can get to him early on, get into his head. And then obviously there's big question marks still with Waddle and Hill, if they're going to be healthy. Waddle, like he took that big hit to his chest early in the game last week, and then Hill's still kind of coming off that ankle injury. So we'll see how effective they're going to be. And with just all those question marks in that Dolphins team right now, I think I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys by like probably 10 to 12 points.
Okay. Okay. Nick?
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I'm going Dolphins. The Dolphins are at home. They're 6-1 at home. They're due for a big win. The Cowboys coming off a disappointing loss. They haven't lost too many times, but most of their successes also come at home, which many of these good teams this year have been doing that. But I think it's time the Dolphins get that win. I think the time is this game on Christmas. Um, Lights are shining big. Christmas time. I think it's time they're going to get their win as long as Tyreek and Waddle, as long as those guys are healthy. I don't think they'll have any problem. I think it's going to be a close game with one possession. I would say by 7.
Okay. Okay. I actually think I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think they're
Mhm.
going to take it by, 6 or 7 points, one touchdown, 34-27, something like that, right around there. I think that the Cowboys match up well with the Dolphins on paper. I think, like we talked about earlier, I think Dak's got a little more arm talent than Tua does. CD's playing at the best level he's ever played at. Obviously, Tyreek Hill still matters, and Jalen Waddle's coming off of a big game as well. So I think those definitely will play a factor. I'm sure Tyreek Hill and Waddle will both eat that game. I think that the Dolphins' run game will struggle a little bit. I don't think it'll be great. I think it'll be a bit of just an air raid type of night where the Dolphins are playing from behind and they're trying to catch up, and Tua's throwing the ball a lot. And I think that'll lead to some mistakes, and I think that's kind of where Dallas will get them. Force some turnovers from either whether it be from Tua or a fumble from somebody. I think that's going to be the deciding factor in the game is turnovers that the Cowboys can force on the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I'd also like to highlight that matchup of hopefully we'll see some Ramsey on CD Lamb action. I think that'll be a fun matchup to watch. I think they stack up well against each other, both big, both physical. And we'll see if CD can make a difference in that game. And if he can get a few big plays, I think that'll be really beneficial to the Cowboys moving forward in that game.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. I see that. Let's go ahead and pop on over to Ravens Niners. What are we thinking about that game?
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead.
start. Yeah, so the Niners, they're looking unstoppable. I have to go Niners. It just makes sense at this point. Ravens defense going to be killer, but the Niners have been going up against great defenses all year, and they've been killing them. So I don't think the Niners will have any problem putting up any less than 28 points on the Ravens. And the Ravens oftentimes don't reach that high of points in games when they're not getting the ball like that. So I think it's going to be maybe even a 2-3 possession score game. It could be anywhere from 28, 14 to 35, 20, something like that. I think it's going to be pretty substantial win, and I think it's going to assure again that the 49ers are just the best team right now. They're untouchable, and going forward, I think it's going to be like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens and the Niners were a matchup that we saw in the future in the playoffs.
Okay. Okay. I like it. I like it. Tyler?
I'm gonna have to go. I'll go with the same. I think it'll be a little bit closer than that. It's gonna take a Lamar Jackson absolute masterclass for the Ravens to win this game, just because you're gonna have Bosa coming off the edge, you're gonna have Chase Young coming off the edge. It'll take a lot of him to scrambling, running, getting creative. So Lamar Jackson's gonna have a massive game. And then on the other side of the ball, um, Brock Purdy, if you can get to him early and get into his head early and hit him early, he shows signs of weakness throughout the game. So in that first drive or two, if the Ravens can get to him, maybe get a sack or two, get a few knocks on him, I think they could throw Purdy off his game, and that would help them going forward. And those are the two keys for the Ravens to win that game. But I do think the Niners will pull it out just because they're the better team right now, and they just look so dominant recently.
I think I have to agree that the Niners are going to win
Yeah.
this one. I think it'll be close, though, and I think it'll be a lower scoring game. I don't think it's going to be anything close to a shootout. I think it's going to be one of those defensive ball games. I mean, we've saw the Ravens defense do pretty impressive things this year. They held the Lions to 6 points one week, and then obviously we know that Niners defense is loaded with talent as well. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Hufanga, all those guys. So I think this is definitely going to be a defensive game. Overall, I don't think I'd bet the under on this one, to say the least. Honestly.
Okay, and I think this is a Super Bowl preview. I think this would be my
Okay.
Super
Yeah.
Bowl preview.
I could see
I think
that.
this is the game we will see again, just like that 2013 Super Bowl when the Harbaughs coached against each other. I think it was. So hopefully we'll see these two teams play later down the road, because this is going to be a fun game, I think.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely. What else did we want to hit up?
Let's see.
Were we thinking awards?
Yeah,
Jett, give me
Let's go to awards. Let's start with the Rookie of the Year awards. Which way are both those going? CJ Stroud's set to miss his second game in a row, and we're not sure when that return is coming, if it is coming. What do we think about both of the Rookie of the Year awards?
I mean, even with this injury, it's impossible to put anyone near Stroud. I mean,
Yeah.
Stroud has just had an outstanding. We were talking about him in the MVP race just a few weeks ago. So
Yeah.
for anyone to be in those MVP races and not be a clear-cut Rookie of the Year would be very rare. And I think in this case, it's also rare. It's pretty clear that CJ Stroud will be getting that Rookie of the Year at the end of the year. So I think he's probably just going to miss one more game, we hope. But yeah, that's my clear-cut guy right now.
Okay. Okay. I think we can all honestly agree that he's still probably 100% the guy to win or not MVP, sorry, Rookie of the Year. So I don't really think there's much argument there. Over on the defensive side, heavy favorite Jalen Carter, which honestly I think he's incredibly good. I'm not as moved by him to put him as heavy of a favorite as he currently is over guys like Will Anderson, Brian Branch, people like that have also had great seasons. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but he has an incredible supporting cast around him. He's playing great, but I don't know. I'm just not as moved by him as a lot of people are. What do you guys think about that?
I kind of agree with that. I think he'll get the award, and I do think he's been the best defensive rookie, but I don't know if he's been as dominant as like the odds are saying he's been, and giving him that such heavy favorite. I honestly think Devon Witherspoon has been really good this year in Seattle. He's been effective. He's been a good playmaker, but Jalen Carter has definitely been the best defensive rookie. Although I do agree with you that he hasn't been as dominant as people are saying he is, or the odds are saying he is. He's currently minus 6,000 to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year, which is pretty much a lock
The lock,
at that
yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's really like a weak year in terms of race for defensive rookie of the year. His season is putting him that far ahead of everybody else. So I think it's a bit of a Mickey award to say the least, but I mean he'll win it. That's just the way I see it. I don't know, Nick. Do you have something else other than that?
No, I was the same thing as Tyler. I think Witherspoon definitely deserves to just get his name thrown out as an honorable mention there, but I think it's still clear cut Jalen Carter. And wouldn't be surprised once again. I think both of the offensive and defense are pretty clear cut at this point, as it probably should be with the week 16 going by. So I think it's pretty much set.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on to the Walter Payton man of the. No, I'm playing. I'm playing. We'll go and head to, let's talk some draft. We're kind of seeing the draft order shape up. Currently have the Patriots sitting in the 2 slot. I'm sure Tyler's happy about that. The Bears got a top pick as well that I'm sure they're happy about. So, what do you guys think about that? Based on the way things are shaping up, where do you think some certain guys are going to go, and where are they not going to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All I'm saying is the Bears are not picking QB at number 1. We got our guy in Justin Fields, and I think, this week, clearly everyone's speaking out. All these Bears wide receivers have been coming out to the public saying, Justin's our guy. Even Jim Moore even came out and said that Caleb Williams and Drake May are not even close to as good as Justin Fields is. So I think if you draft a young QB, you almost lose the clubhouse. These guys actually do have a tight bond. I know, the record doesn't show it, but I think the team has good chemistry, and we play well off that chemistry. I think we could spend our money this year, get our 2 draft picks. We'll probably have 2 in the top 10. So if it was me, I would trade down from the 1, probably somewhere near the 3 to 5, get Marvin Harrison. And then I would pick up either maybe a defensive tackle, maybe even Jared Verse or Kool-Aid. I think either of those guys would be good guys to get at that 9-10 spot that we'll most likely have.
Okay. What about you brought up Verse. What about Latu out of UCLA? What do you think about him? Would you consider him?
Yeah, Latu's there as well. He's one of those guys where I think he's going to go probably earlier than that our spot is at. But I think the Bears will probably win they got some easy games. They got the Cardinals and Falcons coming up, and the Packers, which could be winnable. So I think Latu might be gone at that point we're at, maybe even a pick or 2 before. But I wouldn't be mad with Jared Verse at all. I know he's falling as well a little bit. So if we traded that number 1 pick and got another late first rounder, we could go for a D end as well. But someone to pair up with Montez Sweat would definitely be dirty.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. Tyler?
So regarding the Bears, I'm not totally sold on Justin Fields being an NFL quarterback. I think he's a good fantasy football quarterback, and he's fun to watch.
But is he bad enough to warrant drafting a new quarterback?
That's the thing. I don't think he's bad enough to warrant drafting a quarterback, especially when I'm personally not sold on Caleb Williams, and I don't know if the Bears are either. So if you're not sold on him, I think you just stick with Fields. And I honestly could see the Bears sitting at 1 and taking Marvin Harrison. I mean, I don't see any harm in that. I don't see any shame in that. I think that would be a good move for them, as he's probably the most talented player in this draft. So I think the Bears and Marvin Harrison is kind of a match made in heaven. I think that's bound to happen, no matter where they're picking. If they're going to stay at 1 with that Panthers pick, maybe they have their own pick at 3 or 4. So we'll see how that goes. And then.
Oh, no, you can take it.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add on to your point about not being sold on Caleb Williams. I mean, we're talking about a guy that put up incredible numbers, won a Heisman, was in the Heisman race for quite some time this year as well. But, people really started to, as we've gotten closer through this draft process, people have really started to dig in and look deeper at the facts. Against top 25 teams in his career, he barely completes 50% of his passes. And in his career has 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions versus top 25 teams. Yeah. So it basically just kind of shows that when he's playing against high levels of talent, he's not as crazy as he is, beating up on whoever it may be, Arizona State, who he didn't even beat up on actually. It was a close game. So, but point is that those numbers are very inflated. They're little fraudulent numbers. Exactly. But,
yeah, I just don't know if he's built for it, to be honest. Personality-wise, he doesn't seem like a team-first player, skipping out on his bowl game, transferring. There's just a lot of red flags there with Caleb Williams that makes me not totally sold on him. So we'll see how he does at the Combine. I know the Combine is really important for quarterbacks, as you see a lot of guys jump up like crazy after their Combines. We saw that with Zach Wilson. We saw that with Trey Lance. So I think there's still a lot of time for these quarterbacks to move around. There's nothing really set in stone yet. So we'll see how Caleb Williams does at the Combine with his interviews, and there'll be a lot more research done on him hopefully soon.
Yeah, he's basically like the anti-Bo Nix, essentially. He's just the
Yeah.
opposite, honestly. That's what he is. And very different personalities with very similar play styles, honestly. That's how I
So where do you
phrase
guys
it.
think that? Where do you guys think Caleb ends up then if it's not the Bears?
I mean, are we assuming the Bears trade down, or are we assuming the draft order sits the
Say that
same?
the Bears take Marvin at 1
And he goes 2. 100%.
Oh,
100%.
yeah.
to the Patriots.
I don't know if I'm a fan of that, but I think that would probably be what's happened because he is probably the most talented quarterback in the draft. But
I think
not
that
a fan of it, but I think it'll happen.
I think the Bears position honestly kind of sucks at number 1 because like trade down values kind of diminished like in terms of like trading with the number 2 or number 3 team cuz it's like, "Oh, well, why would we trade for that
Yeah.
pick? You don't need a quarterback. You're not going to take him. So no point in trading up. We'll just sit here and let you take Marvin Harrison cuz you don't need Caleb Williams." So I think that kind of sucks for them being in the position they're in where it's not they can't use like the play of like, "Oh, well, we could take him." But so I think that kind
Two
of
is impossible. Yeah, two's impossible, right? Two is impossible to trade with. But if you have someone at that 3 spot who knows they want Caleb and they know that number 2 is going to take him, that's where you get the leverage. So I think you're just hoping that the Cardinals aren't that second pick. You want the Patriots to be number 2, so maybe you trade back to 4 and pick up Marvin at 4. So that's where I would be at. I think you don't want the Cardinals to be at 2 or at 2 because then you're losing all your leverage.
Yeah.
I honestly think the Cardinals being at 2 is worse for the Bears than the
Yeah.
Pats being at 2. Honestly,
Yeah,
That's-
it is
okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and do we think the Giants draft a quarterback, and do we think the Commanders draft a quarterback?
Okay,
Because those are two
I've
teams.
I've been on this train for centuries. I've never seen a quarterback get as many chances as Daniel Jones
As
has
Daniel
gotten
Jones.
in the NFL. It is absurd how many chances
Yeah.
and excuses that man has got. He is not a franchise quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. Doesn't matter who you put around him. I mean, Kenny Galladay was a 10 touchdown wide receiver a year guy, and then he came to New York, and he's no longer employed anywhere. So, I think that right now New York's where wide receivers' careers go to die. Golden
Mhm.
Tate died there. It's just that's just the way it is, I guess. So I think it's definitely time to draft a quarterback, but I don't know if
But
they
do
will.
we think they will? Yeah. After paying Daniel Jones all that money, I don't know if they draft a quarterback. And same kind of thing in Washington. Like Sam Howell might look good enough to warrant him another season of opportunity. So we'll see. I think it could be a little bit less demand for quarterbacks than we think, as the Cardinals could also hang on to a quarterback. So
I think one of these teams are going to get a quarterback fall into their lap that they didn't expect. I think that's the way that the draft is shaping out right now. There's going to be some team who Drake May could be picked 5, 6. We don't know because we don't know what these teams are thinking QB wise. A lot of people seem set in their ways this year, whereas last year it seemed a lot different. So it'd be interesting to see how many QBs actually do go within that top 10 spots.
yeah, we could definitely see the Falcons trading up. And a sneaky team I could see taking quarterback would maybe be the New York Jets, sitting there if they're in the 7 spot, 8 spot, 9 spot. They have a guy they like that falls to them. They could take a quarterback, sit him for a year or two under Rodgers, and it could be like another Jordan Love situation. I think that's a dream situation for a quarterback.
I could
I
see
just don't
that.
know
I could see that
if
as
Rodgers is going to like that.
I could see that as
You know,
well, but I think that would happen in like the second round. I think it would be like
back
one of
around.
those guys that okay, I don't know where Penix is going right now. I've seen him pinned everywhere from top 10 to middle of the second round, so I don't really know what's gonna. We'll see more as the combine goes through. We'll get a better picture of that. Bo Nix is another guy that comes to mind, one of those second round
Yeah.
guys that could benefit from a year behind Rodgers. So I think that's more the direction they'll go. I think there's other issues they need to address with that 7th pick in order to make sure the situation is perfect for Rodgers next year.
Like Brock Bowers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
B.
I feel like everybody just mocks Brock Bowers as I don't really know what this team needs, but he's like the best player, so we'll just put him there. Like I feel like there's
It's just
no I feel like there's no thought process to where Brock Bowers goes other than that exact like
it's
thing.
just
Like
any team that doesn't need a tight end,
that, yeah.
or that doesn't have a tight end. I mean, could go get him.
Or it's like
And I
any
think he
team that
could be
like
more
doesn't
of them.
have like a standout need or like you know what I mean.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's
True.
kind of how I think about the Brock Bowers situation. But are there any other top prospects you guys want to talk about in terms of where you think they're gonna go?
I mean, I know we mentioned him briefly, but Michael Penix is just an interesting situation because, yeah, as you said, he could go with the ninth, eighth pick for all we know, or he could go in the second round.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that could rise super high or drop super low in these next few months, depending on his draft stock, his combine, all that stuff coming out. I think a team to watch out for Penix could be the New Orleans Saints. That would be a situation where he could go in and almost start immediately, start after a few weeks.
I think he's
But he
starting
could also,
immediately there.
yeah, he could also go to the Jets and sit for 2 years behind Rodgers, or he could be thrown in like Washington, where he has to come out and play immediately again and be the guy and be the savior of the franchise. So Michael Penix is an interesting name because we have no idea what's going to happen with him, as opposed to we know Bo Nix might go a little bit later, Drake May is going to be a little bit higher, Penix could go anywhere. So I think that's a name to watch out for.
And then in all of this, there's still Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
So I mean,
Yeah.
I think the most obvious landing spot to him in terms of what I've seen on mocks and kind of just the way the QBs stack up against each other has been the Raiders. So Raiders obviously, you know, they don't have a head coach right now. Well, they do, but not a long-term head coach. So we're gonna have to see what they do this offseason. I think that hire will tell us a little bit more about the way they go as well in terms of which quarterback they're gonna like. Whether that's more of a pocket passer, gunslinger, or like a guy like Jaden Daniels who offers a bit of a dual threat. So, I mean, that's interesting. Do you guys think Jaden Daniels is going to go around there? Or do you think he's a Heisman winner that falls a little later? I mean, Lamar Jackson, you know, won a Heisman and was the last pick in the first round.
Yeah. I think Jaden Daniels is one of those guys that's gonna rise from the combine. I mean, you don't when you think of Jaden Daniels, you don't think of a 6'4", guy. You just think of someone who's just running around. Usually, it's almost like Justin Fields, where when you have someone that tall, you don't expect him to be that fast and mobile like that. But he really can be one of those guys that he can move and throw on the right. When you put him in the right offense, I think it could work. I'm not sure if the Raiders is that offense that would work for him, but I think he could rise up quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if he also fell at the end of the first round. Um, I think I think you got to put him ahead of maybe either Bo or Penix, maybe one of them. I think one of those three guys. It's crazy because I think one of those three guys is going to fall to probably the second round. So it's interesting, and we'll probably find out soon and see which one of those it'll be.
Okay, absolutely.
yeah. With
Um,
with Jaden Daniels, I'd like to talk about Jaden Daniels. He needs to go to a situation that's built for him. So like Lamar Jackson went to the Ravens and they built that system for him.
yeah,
They gave him a tight end, they gave him a run first offense, and that was a good situation for him. So I think Jaden Daniels needs to go to a place that's willing to kind of build around him and give him the opportunity to succeed. So maybe a team that's kind of losing their head coach, losing their GM, like the Raiders, like the Patriots, a team that's going to completely retool their roster would be the best situation for Jaden Daniels because he's going to get a team built for him to succeed, as opposed to him getting thrown into a situation where he needs to kind of pick up where the other quarterback left off.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. If you draft a guy like Jaden Daniels, a dual threat, I think you have to build around him. There's practically no point in drafting somebody with his play style if you're just going to sit there and keep your playbook, you know, black and white, the exact same as it always was. So I think you that's just a perfect explanation of what teams need to do regarding him. Um, but I mean, I think it's a fair assessment to say that you know, like Nick was saying, he's going to rise around the combine. I think he's a guy that could probably run a low 4.4. Honest,
Yeah.
that's probably where I see him falling in terms of 40 time. So I think definitely once that buzz starts happening, he'll skyrocket up the boards. I mean, we saw what happened with Zach Wilson just because of some throws on his pro day. I
Yeah.
mean, literally made him the second overall pick in the draft, coming from I don't know 10, 11, probably where he was projected before. So, you know, those do hold quite a bit of a weight. Honestly, probably too much weight in terms
way
of
too much.
way too much weight. Especially at the quarterback position. It's a little different once you get into like running backs and other positions, but for this situation, I think I can definitely see Jaden Daniels rising towards the top of the QB prospects once we hit the combine, and he puts up the best numbers of any quarterback.
Yeah, with Jane Daniels, you just want to make sure he can make those throws kind of outside the numbers, those contested throws outside the numbers, as opposed to just the deep ball and running the football. So those short to medium throws, 8 to 15 yards out by the sideline, that's the toughest throw for a quarterback as of his play style. A guy like Justin Fields can't make that throw. Lamar struggled with that throw. So we'll see if he can do that. That's where a lot of interceptions come from, and I think that's the most important throw he needs to be able to make at his pro day.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we are about at that time, guys, where we're gonna go ahead and call it quits here. And I just wanted to say, everybody, thank you for tuning in. You have to check us out on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. It's magical over there, man. There's something in the air. It's cinema. You just have to check it out. So everybody, head on over there, follow us, and you guys got anything to say?
Hopefully
Man,
we'll see you
Merry
soon.
Christmas, Happy Holidays. You guys enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you after the break.
Yep.
Take care, y'all.